Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live session at the Reactor. My name is, you can all see my screen, hopefully. Yeah, great. I'm just going to put on a small video of the Reactor, which actually tells you what the Reactor is. Great. My name is Rav, and I'm the program manager at Reactor London. Before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We're all here to learn, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, and be kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. And we are joined by the lovely Dennie, who is an MVP and also the president and developer at DD Soft. Please note that this session will be recorded and will be available to view in the next 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us, Dennie. I will be in the background if you need me. And should I hand it over to you now?
Okay, thank you very much, Raf, and thank you everyone attending this live meeting, and thanks for everyone who is watching us later on while they're having time. Today, I want to present you the talk Autism and Tech for you for the Microsoft Reactor, and I do it online this time. And if I want to talk about autism, or if I want to talk about accessibility in common, I really want to do that with accessible best practices. And a lot of time there are also autism-friendly ways of working. And that's not only for people with autism is good, but it's good for everyone. And that's inclusion, that you have best practices and use them for everyone. And one of the best practices that I want to use today is just showing this talk what you can expect and what you can't. Because we all know we don't want to waste our time watching two talks, attending talks, even virtual. There's an overload of information, and I don't want to waste your time. So I give you what you can expect, what I'm going to cover, and what's maybe not on the agenda. Of course, there's time for questions and answers. And then you know if you should watch it or maybe should leave. But I hope you stay, and I hope I can enlighten you with these topics. I'm going to tell a bit about myself. I call it the live demo of my talk. It's not a talk with really coding, but really just a person with autism telling about his life with autism. Yeah, is a live demo, because we all know tech talks need live demos. Then I give you some theory about the autist brain. I'm going to tell a little bit about myths and beyond. And here you see that autism and tech has 5 major categories, and these categories are explained for the first time in the topic the autist brain. Then I'm going to wrap up just telling what really worked for me, because I talk about the theory about some way or autistic thinking. I talk about what's difficult or what's different, but then I really talk about what works for me. And then it's a wrap up, and maybe we have some time for questions, and I try to provide you some answers.
Dennie, sorry, yeah? I think, did you want to share your screen? We can't.
Oh, no, it didn't work. Oh, damn. I forgot that. Oh, my God.
No, that's
why you are saying that right now?
That's absolutely fine. No problem.
Oh, my God.
That's all right. We can see it now. We can all see it.
Okay, so I just going back to the previous slide. Yeah, it's just the title talk. Oh, my God. Oh. Okay, so that is the content of today. I just continue with telling a bit about who I am. I am Dennie de Klerk, and I'm president and developer at Diagnose. Diagnose is a non-profit in Belgium, and we connect the IT field or the IT sector with the social field, or I call it the social sector. By example, making solutions for caregivers, making solutions for people with a job in non-profits, for non-profits, and also for their clients. So, for example, I always have a deep interest and deep knowledge about people with disabilities, and it's also about people with learning disabilities and so on. I'm very active on Twitter with my Twitter handle @Dennie de Klerk, and my favorite hashtag Dreaming is Believing. That was the start of my speaker career. And of course, I'm very proud I am a Microsoft MVP. So I already should have 3 wings, and I have 3 wings, but maybe I just need to update that picture. Something to do in the next couple of days, weeks, hours. We will see. So I am different. And there's a topic to say. As I said, this your live demo, because the tech talk needs a live demo, even if it's not something technical. That's how it works in the tech scene. So I'm going to talk how different that I am. And I do it via my life story since I was a kid until right now. So I always was different when I was a child. I have very special interests, obsessions. I was very much in my own, as I called, in my own world, in my own fantasy. There was difference. Sometimes there was tension, you know. And then I got my autism diagnosis when I was at the age of 13. Unfortunately, the clinic who gave me my autism diagnosis not only gave me that, they only give me an extra present that I don't want it, so an unwanted present. That was a trauma of that clinic. So in a way, I am autistic and I have a severe anxiety disorder, or is it PTSD or something else? We don't know. But they will talk a little bit about anxiety later on in this talk. And I don't have a university college, so I went to a school until I was 18 years, and I didn't have the opportunity to go to university college because the level of math was way too low. Yeah, that's boring, but then we do it on another way. So, and I'm without a paid job, so I'm a volunteer. What I do as a president at Diagnose, all what I'm doing, developing, IT coaching, customers, clients, it's all on a voluntary base. And people can say, voluntary work, is it good? Should people with autism not always all have a job? There's our perfect world for saying the vision, everyone should have a job, but it's really country by country and region by region. For example, in Belgium, I really struggled a lot to getting a job, and now I have a fee from the government, and I can do what I need, and I really can help people way more right now with my non-profit, with my voluntary work, than I tried the job. For example, in between 2008, 2011, I tried some jobs, but getting a job if you don't have a science degree, for example, as a developer, as a programmer, and even as a person who is different, was really, really difficult. So I ended up in a factory for people with disabilities. And just saying one thing, I was very, very unhappy there. Very, very unhappy. Really bad. But fortunately, I could do some tech development in my after hours. It was an escape for the reality at my job. And then I ended on a sickness benefit. But yeah, it does all sound really dramatic. It's not that dramatic because I really have a happy life. And even in that period, beside my autism or beside my difficulties or disabilities, I always was, since I was 16 years it is, a tech lover. So there were always good things too. And about technology, and I'm really, really fanatic pro Microsoft. It's very, very crazy what people in my surroundings thought if I say some things from Microsoft. It is even not since I'm an MVP. It was way before that. Excuse me, fanatic. Sometimes maybe people say too, but it doesn't matter. So, and I'm really passionate if I talk about IT, about Microsoft, about programming. I was for Windows Mobile, so even before Windows Phone, the Windows Mobile, only, let's call business people had that. I buy the PDA. I made all my money, all my savings for the PDA. Windows Mobile 5.6 point, And then Windows Phone, and then my first thought, oh, why did Windows Phone die? I really love that phone. And by the way, the Windows Phone had a really, really accessible UI. I worked with a lot of Windowses from 3.1 until 10. Unfortunately, I don't have 11 yet because my computer is not strong enough, and always buying a new computer, even for the profit, is a lot of money. And I started with programming in Visual Basic 6. And then a bit later, I saw Sharp. Oh, I saw the light, let's mean. I started developing in C Sharp. And how exactly did I roll into the tech world? And when I was 15 years old, it started. I wanted to be a developer because at my school I learned for office work, secretary assistant, office work, and I really wanted to do more. For example, at that school already for, let's call it secretary assistant, so they call it, and we learned working with Microsoft Office. And for my classmates, oh sorry, it was a joke or a wrong word. I didn't have a classmate, it were class bullies. Yeah, unfortunately, I was bullied a lot. And if people are watching this, okay, funny, I don't say names. And I know, look where I am right now. So, and for their access, Microsoft Access was really, really difficult. It was maybe too difficult. For me, I just started having fun if there were lessons about Access, Microsoft Access, the database environment. So when I was starting, getting 15 years old already, I really wanted, next to my what I did at school, be a developer. And I had Mike, and Mike was really my best friend, still a really, really good friend of me. And he was a developer, he was a programmer, and I was so looking up to him. So I did my school career, and it started, I get better and better with books from the library, than buying books and so. And so between 2007, 2008, I needed to try some jobs at the fabric for people, at the factory for people with disabilities. And then programming was really my escape. It was on the evenings and in the weekend. It was my sweet escape, let's say it. So in 2011, I crashed. And luckily enough, in 2012, I started as a volunteer developer. There was a place in Ostend where I still was this afternoon, a half a day in a week, the Monday afternoon, I going to volunteer in the place where it all was started in 2012. And there's an organization for people with learning disabilities. And there I help at the home IT. So I develop a software for the clients, or I help them with the websites. So that started that journey in 2012. I really started engaging with the Belgium Microsoft community, the conferences, the people, the meetups. In 2014, I started my own nonprofit, DDSoft, because I wanted to do something more than what I did in Ithaca. Even I still go a half a day in a week. The technology there is not Microsoft technology. It's not needed there, and maybe not always really possible, or not in a direct way. But yeah, with DDSoft, I go into a world with Microsoft technology. In 2017, I started as a conference speaker. Some people say that I am a strange man or a really special man. A lot of speakers start speaking really in their hometown, in their country, really close by. I'm from Belgium, and the first international conference was at the other side of the world. It was in Sydney. Thank you for NDC for accepting me that time. And in 2019, I became a Microsoft MVP. And then maybe you shouldn't say that, or even you shouldn't think that, but it was really one of the first times, or the first time in my life, that I had the feeling, oh my God, I really achieved something. Yeah, because I didn't have a paid job. And let's face it, all voluntary work has a lesser vision from a lot of people. And sometimes you get that vision, and then, oh my God, I'm an MVP. I achieved something, luckily. Yeah, so my tech world. And before I go into the theory about autism, because you need to learn a lot about autism today, I want to do it funny. I don't know how many people are developers here, because it's a Microsoft reactor, but Microsoft has also low code and no code and office solutions and teams, and it's not all developers and UI and front end. But I want to make it funny with comparing developer logics with autistic logic. And it's really straightforward. For example, a Boolean, you know it, it's only true or false. There's no in between. Autistic logic, a fact is only true or false. Not in between. For a lot of people, not on the spectrum, there's everything in between. These are Booleans. And if you go to developers, it's good to declare variables and what type it expects. Yeah, I know they are var developers. I'm not someone. It's very nice that every circumstance is declared. If you program a loop, the exit scenario should be clear. Well, it's the same for people with autism. If there's a path to follow, Otis' life is clear and clean. Oh, developers logic, I said it's very structured, but maybe I need to really think about it. If you look at the GitHub, is it always very structured? Is even each open source repo even structured? Yeah, it's the same. Otis, most of them are very structured. There are exceptions. So enough about telling about myself and making some jokes about comparing developers with autistic people, because it's just a way of breaking the ice for you today. I want to give you, want to take you away in 4 or 5 really theories about autism. And then after this, I really want to compare it to my tech world, how it is as autism and tech. But before we can do this, you need some more theory about autism. And one of the theories who are there, so I'm talking about some theories, and one of those theories is the theory of mind. And the theory of mind is all about understanding the why. Why are some things happening? Why does my mom comes angry from home? I didn't something wrong, maybe. It's just her coworker has making that my mom has a very annoying day. But for a person with autism, this can be difficult to understand. They can directly link it to themselves. Oh, my mom is a bit of sad or angry. Did I did something wrong? Also seeing which behavior causes which outcome. Yes, sometimes is a predictability. If I, for example, talk about to my friend about that topic, no, let's call it COVID-19 because it's there. And sometimes some friend can really answer very unexpected on my topic, for example, on COVID-19, then maybe I can be scared or mind that topic for all other people. Or otherwise, if something people really like me talking about something, for example, about IT, but if I'm not talking about to IT people, if I'm not talking to IT people, me, I just need to talk about myself. I don't know what it is. This all more difficult, and that is linked to the theory of mind. Also seeing logical steps, for example, if you need to, yeah, logical steps, but not in your daily life, but in the whole world, for example, what's happening and what happens if that happens. Yeah, that's sometimes more difficult because we are really theoretic, as I said, developers and autists, but the world isn't that theoretic. Maybe if all the world were all autistic people, it would be more logic. Executive functioning is everything that you need to know what you need in your daily living and or in your working environment. Examples are planning a time slot in your agenda, scheduling meetings, scheduling customers, but also scheduling where you need to clean your home. When do you clean your home? Do you know, if you want to clean your home, do you have enough products, for example, to do the laundry? Do you have enough? If you want to cook, what do you need to cook? Do you have all the right recipes, the right ingredients? But also in tech life, if you want to go to a conference, what should you wear at the conference or a meeting? The same at virtual conferences. It's all way more thinking for people with autism than people without autism. Talking about conferences again, which sessions do you want to see? But maybe you have FOMO, and if you choose that session, you can't see that session. So it takes a lot of effort. Other examples in the real world, let's say not in the tech world, for example, is doing groceries. And I used to have a joke that I said, it was for the first time I said I joke at a P3X, a conference in London in 2019. It was a very sad joke because it's not true anymore. I was saying, for me doing groceries, so doing my grocery shopping is very difficult. Unfortunately, that's still true. But then I said, yeah, planning a trip to the other side of the world, so conference travel, is way more easy than doing my groceries. The sad thing is, it's true. And the sad thing is, I still need to do groceries. And with COVID-19, so it just got worse. Some shops, so some months ago, or maybe it's already a year or a year and a half ago, you only was allowed such an amount of minutes in the shop, or that you need your mask and this and that. So yeah, and the bad thing is, well, the good thing is I really can start thinking about planning going to conferences again and my travel, because I have some nice spots on my agenda. Central coherence is the coherence of situations, things, tasks, and works. It's about seeing the global picture, but then on a very broad view. For example, why is a very good example? You are walking in the street and there's a woman clothed as a nurse, so a white shirt, white trousers, and then you can think, why there's a nurse at the street? And that is just an example that can be difficult for some people with autism, but maybe it's just a home nurse, so a nurse stepping off their car and going to care people at their home. Some things, really stupid things about that. I really have that also. For example, if you know somebody, I really link it to the place that I know him. For example, let's do it in the medical sector again, a doctor. If you go to the doctor's office, it's that setting of the doctor, sometimes with the white shirt, sometimes not, but it's all depends on what kind of doctor. And you know it's him, for example, just call it him. But if you see him at the shop, unexpected, at the shop where you're doing your groceries, for example, at the store, you really don't recognize or see the clue why your doctor is there, for example, yeah. And sometimes then you see people that saying, hi, why you are so arrogant? I say, me arrogant, why? You are not saying hi. Yeah, sorry, I didn't recognize you. That's thanks to my autism. I'm not arrogant at all. So, and this also comes, there's an overlay between central coherence and context blindness. But context blindness going further, and the most research and the recent research on context blindness is by a Belgian researcher into autism, Peter Vermeulen. And context blindness is really understanding the context of something. A very short way for saying that is, one incentive has one meaning. And for, just say, neurotypicals, a lot of people with autism or with other neurodiversity want to call, I say between brackets, normal people. We don't want to use this term if you are in the neurodiversity and in the autism scene. And we call them neurotypicals. There's just a vision. If they put this label, we put the label back. Karma. So the neurotypicals, aka what I explained, for them, one incentive can have a lot of different meanings. For example, sometimes they say, you really did a great job, but sometimes they really mean it was a great job, but sometimes they say sarcastic, yeah, it's really bad, you did a great job. That's the way neurotypicals works, yes. For people with autism, it's very, very difficult. Same of the same words for other meanings. It takes way more energy to, let's say, even in our own mother tongue, we need to translate everything, the words, the situation, the context, and sometimes you really have very funny things that you really, really misunderstand, and then you have some communication thing. I also want to talk about sensory deficiencies. And for people who saw me doing this talk in the past, and that's new. That's a new topic, the sensory deficiencies. I added that for today, the first time in public speaking about that, with that added. That's about a lot of people with autism can have a sensory overload. So they are really having sensory overloads. Oh my God, and they block and they freeze, by example, or they can have a panic attack or freezing just to too lot sensory stimulations. But the other thing is also true. There can also be a need for additional stimulation, sensory stimulation. Sometimes you can have things in your body, in your brain, for example, stress or in your brain, and this is also a sensory thing, or feelings, or maybe physical pain feelings. This is also sensories. And then some you need to just add extra sensories. You need to search them, extra sensory simulations to cope the things inside. So some people with autism really don't like loud music, and the music need to be also always very silent, or some people prefer no music. And then some other people with autism or in other situations, they just need very, very loud music and flashlights, by example. And sensory deficiencies can also cause difficulties at jobs. And you will see later if I combine the autism theory to a tech life. And then you have some extras too, because autism is not enough, honestly. It's not enough. A lot of people with autism, let's say a lot of people, most of the people with autism have extra mental health conditions, like really extra sensory to stress, anxiety, depression, ADHD, so mental health conditions. And the bad thing is, or not bad, the crazy thing is, it is what it is. Is it bad? It is what it is. That can trigger more difficulties. No, it's always triggering more difficulties, but that can trigger in being more autistic. But that's not true. You are not more or less autistic situation to situation, but you can behave more different. And that's what people can link directly to being more autistic. So if I am very anxious, as I said, I have also an anxiety disorder. The moment that I really have anxiety, that I live in anxiety, is also on a spectrum from much to little, and you know what it is. But the moment that I'm really, really anxious or stressed, then I can behave, or I always behave more autistic, by example. But my autism is not works on that moment, it's always the same. But the basic solution. The good thing is you can do, if you have a coworker with autism or a family person with autism, family, your son or family, or your daughter or a coworker, you can do something without being a healthcare professional. And that for you have the basic solution. That is just simple explaining, and explaining. People with autism really, if they know why something is needed, why something is, that really helps them. But not only explaining, also try to understand the person with autism. Try to understand why her or his behavior is different, or why she or he don't do what you expected. Really try to figure out, and then maybe some little adjustment really will help. For example, some lining, or just maybe some kind of words you use by greeting can really have an impact on the whole day with the person you are with autism. And of course, I also need to talk about some myths and beyond. It's really short. It's only 2 slides, I think. So autism spectrum disorder, Asperger's. Is it a disability? Is it neurodiversity? Oh, let's face it, the thought leadership on autism changed a lot. And people with autism, and it's really dependent also on parts of the world. In some parts of the world, they still see Asperger's as another thing than autism. Some people want and don't want to identify them with Asperger's. Some people say it's all one autism spectrum disorder. And some people say we are just autistic. But they are superpowers. Some of them, most of them, except every of them, if you really put them in a place that they really feel well in their skin, that they really feel well with themselves, then they are really superpowers. And that's in fact a good thing for inclusion, because it brings a lot of new insights. But before you really can be the superpower or the super talent, the superhero, then you really, as a person with autism, you really need to know yourself very, very good. One example, for example, Greta Thunberg. Like everything in the world, you have haters and you have lovers. I'm just saying, the way that she really goes for their vision, that's something you can have respect for. And she identified herself, as she said, she has Asperger's. But should you have a paid job or a volunteer job? And sometimes a paid job is really possible, but not always. My advice is really simple here again. Start with the quality of life and the basic comfortable safety feeling of the person with autism. By example, is a paid job, for example, needed in a situation that the person have a way bigger wage, by example, or that the fee is for the autism? and he really need to travel a lot or buy a lot of stuff of if he really need it. And yeah, it's okay. I have friends with autism who work and really a paid job. But if a person is, oh my God, I don't find a job that I deserve or that I can, for example, I need to go to a factory for people with disabilities. Just by example, what I needed to do is really strange to say, but I just needed to fold boxes, by example. Um, Folding boxes and telling veins, if you need to do that, you are not happy. Definitely not if you have a tech interest. Then maybe it's better to just do as a volunteer. As a volunteer, I can do what I want. I can use my tech to help the world and the people. If I am folding boxes, I not feel good in my skin, and I also not helping others. So that's a start, and all the rest is extra. Okay, we survived the theory about autism, and we are halfway through the talk, so we have still a half talk of talking about tech, because we are people in tech. And as I promised, I really want to link the five major theories, or the five things that I am explained, to tech, and just starting with executive functioning today in tech. And here I want to talk about different energy levels and new technologies. A lot of people with autism have different energy levels. Sometimes they are getting everything. So some people with autism, everything takes a lot of energy. And at the end of the day, they are laying in the couch and it's done. Their energy is over. It's like a battery is running low. And some people have this always. Some people have this if they need to do something in their life or at their job that they really don't like, but against their will, by example. Yeah, sometimes it happens. And some people are really more, let's call it strange, because if I say strange, I only do it in one case, if it happens to me in person. So if I say strange like me, is nothing really to stigmatize, to make it strange, but they are like me. I always say I'm a special one. I'm a special duck in the bite. I talk for myself. So that people are, for example, getting a lot of energy from a new technology. They get all the energy. They read each book, they watch each plural site course, they attend each conference or meetup on a specific technology. Like here I posted Blazing, by example, the logo. But when everyone is using a technology, when the really hot and brand new technology is a commodity for everyone, yeah, the interest of the people with autism can drop down very, very fast. But for me, that's not going to happen at Blazing, I promise myself. But otherwise, it can also be that some people, it takes a lot of energy to learn new things or to adapt new ways of coding or working. And maybe they only do it one or two times in their whole career, really adopting something quite new because it takes so much. And sometimes it is what it is. So let's continue to coding. Let's talk a bit about code style. And the sentence here maybe can sound egoistic, but there's a difference between egoistic behavior and really being egoistic. Sometimes it can look from the outside world as egoistic, but it's just a dysfunctioning or other way of working of the brain. And a lot of people with autism, I mean, me too, have really great intentions, and then you can't be egoistic. But sometimes they think straightforward, it's my way or the highway. And by example, they can be sure and really, they call it also rigid. If they really want to use some classes that they, for example, if you are talking about C# coding, some classes, some nugget package that they really want to use, and maybe coworkers are saying, yeah, but this way maybe is better for that solution, the right tool for the right job. Yeah, sometimes this can be, people at autism can be very more rigid in that. And the reason is because they need to learn something new again. And then maybe they have a lot of imposter syndrome and are becoming unsure of their self again. And then maybe it's better sticking to the old way. Yeah, maybe I even need to say, and maybe it's a shame. As you know, I started Visual Basic 6. Some things, I don't say a lot of things because it's recorded and I'm speaking for Microsoft. But some things I still code like you should code in Visual Basic or 6 or in the first C# function. And some new patterns you really need to adapt, but it takes energy. So, as I said, it's difficult to change code style. It can be difficult, not for everyone. And sometimes it's the same of a complete technology. Sometimes you really learn a new methodology or approach, and then yeah, it's there. I can do it. And if there's something newer again, in IT, each per month, for example, there's something new. Yeah, but yeah, I don't take the energy in this today. Day structure. There's a huge chance that people with autism have a very different day structure, where they perform at their best, where they are at their best. Maybe they need some doing more breaks during the day. Maybe the project time frame is very different as people without autism. But if you see the talents, you really can help do a lot with that. By example, the nights that I'm switched even before the pandemic, day and night, to watch virtual conferences, or even just one track. By example, in the time of Microsoft Build and Microsoft Ignite, it was in person. They always streamed, and for example, there was one streaming on the website with one track or a combination with some tracks, and I really could stay all night on to watch and have the feeling as much as possible. And of course, by the virtual time, if you want to attend something, some conference on the other side of the world, yeah. And then maybe if that person has let's call it a job that he need to go, a 9 to 5 job, maybe he really was up watching the new technology, for example, at a flagship conference. Yeah, but then he doesn't perform in the morning. Or maybe he isn't there. Or he is there physically, but mean not really in their brain and with their developing mood. But it's okay, because then they can bring maybe very new insights that you shouldn't have. Now let's talk about central coherence in tech. Here I am again, COVID-19 and virtual conferences. It's very difficult to adapt. Do you know what I want at conferences, at real life or at in-person conferences? Everything. Talking to people, traveling, being inspired, but something very, very practical. And this comes back to my executive functioning. If I go to a conference and I'm arrived there, I sleep at a hotel, and I don't need to think on anything. There will be food, there will be breakfast, there will be a lunch afternoon, there will be a coffee break with some snacks, and in the night, maybe with some speaker friends or attendee friends, I'm gonna grab a little dish in the night. If you really want to watch virtual conferences or binge attend at your home, you not only need to plan which talks you want to see, but you need, maybe you don't want to go after groceries during that day because you don't want to miss talks. Do you want to cook? Do you need to cook? Maybe you need some things in your refrigerator. Yes, so difficult. And of course, the incentives is very difficult. Watching, sitting in your couch, when you're just streaming 1 hour sessions, maybe just standing your legs to go to your own toilet and grabbing a glass of water in your kitchen. Yeah, the energy thing is very different. Let's talk about cross software solutions. And here you see again a strange duck in the bite. I like that phrase today. I don't know why. I not always talk about or make that sentence. So you see 3 Microsoft products. Yes, GitHub is from Microsoft right now. Is acquired from Microsoft right now. Visual Studio, Office 365, Microsoft 365. But then we have Iowa. It's not a Microsoft product. But it's a great tool for mind mapping. And mind mapping is great to have a structure. Can you imagine how difficult that is for my autistic and rigid thinking, just accepting that I use a not Microsoft tool? It shouldn't be, but I have the feeling. And Iowa is brought up by a co-worker of me, a co-volunteer. We all call them workers because if it's paid or unpaid, we are working. And yes, for example, she really talks about advantages. And yes, it's great. But it's like a fighting in my head. Should I do that? But theoretical, you can make planners in Office 365 and in GitHub Action and in Azure DevOps. Yeah. But if you want to mind map, and you can directly export it to your planner, it's so awesome. But Michael, don't have a really mind mapping. What do we do? The fight in our head is there. For me, I don't say, oh, I say my head. Let's talk about colors and IDs. I really have a strange way of using colors and IDEs. By example, I really want to use a product, the color scheme, that the same way that I use the product for the first time. By example, Visual Studio started years ago, decennia ago, only having a white or a bright color scheme. No, they all have a dark color scheme, and so no, but you need to use the color scheme because the developer does, in fact, that's his preference. It's not true, it's just my way of thinking. As I said, sometimes people with autism can think on another way or a different way than people without autism. And of course, you always have exceptions of the rules, and then we love them. I don't like dark color scheme. A lot of people are loving dark color scheme. And then my own rule, using the tool and the basic color that I started use the tool, for me, the exception is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio Code or VS Code, normally comes with a dark color scheme. I don't feel safe with the dark color scheme. Then I put it to bright, different. And then we are going to talk about the theory of mind and tech. Let's face it, being fanatic at user groups and or conferences. This can be an issue, and this is more difficult at conferences than on user group meetings. Why? The answer is really simple. At conferences, most of the time there are a variety of topics, variety of speakers and also topics, and then you have a variety of meanings and opinions about some things. A user group is most of the time one or two talks at a night, yeah. Then they are kind of all have the same interest, kind of course. But then user groups and conferences and different communications. If you talk too much or too little, this can be an issue. Or this can cause that the person you want to connect to or who you need to connect to, that is zones for strugglings between. And what I have, and that's the one good thing about COVID, of course, I need to say one good thing, because I'm an optimistic person and a positive thinker. So yes, there's something good about COVID-19 and virtual conferences. Yeah, eye contact via a webcam is nothing. It's easy, it's funny, it's not difficult at all. But for a lot of people with autism, making eye contact in real life is so difficult. And then people can think, that, for example, Dennie is not making eye contact with me. Is Dennie not interested in me? Is he only interested in himself and not in me? No, it's not true. I'm just, no. If I don't make eye contact, I'm really concentrating more on you, because for a lot of people, eye contact is very difficult. And if I really need to concentrate on the eye contact to you, maybe I don't hear what you are saying. Yeah, some good thing. So I can connect with people, for example, if there's a Q&A after the talk, or people coming to you after the talk, or just in the hallway. Yeah, it can look uninteresting, but it's not that. And also being different in non-verbal communication. Sometimes you are really excited about a topic, a speaker, but you can't show it how excited you are, or vice versa. There's a speaker that you're excited and you really behave extremely oversatisfied. That is also annoys that person. Okay, being fanatic in tech. I need to add something about that. Are you pro Microsoft, Apple, Linux? Yeah, people have their advantages, but a lot of people, let's call it a lot of neurotypical developers, really are better in using the right tool for the right job. For example, a Linux hosting is maybe normal for, and if you work on a Microsoft environment, or you have an Apple device and you really don't feel bad about it, if you use it with Microsoft technologies, for example, for deploying on an iOS application that you develop, this can be more difficult, really more difficult to use both if you are too fanatic. For example, the case of C#, JavaScript, I never had the feeling for JavaScript. I never had the feeling. I can't blame it. It is what it is. But I'm so happy with Blazor. I don't need JavaScript anymore for my client-side code. And JavaScript isn't bad, no. It's just I don't feel comfortable with that. Fanatic, but it's not only fanatic. It's like the languages have a kind of heuristic. And even it's a little bit different, you don't feel comfortable with that. So before Blazor, I never had exciting front end on web applications, or it was just a server application and all the front end was compiled directly from ASP.NET, or I worked with Xamarin, so it was a C#. No, with Blazor, I really finally can start with some front-end experimentation for the web. It's going fast. Other side, the other thing, I think most of the developers are way more flexible if some customers need a PHP website or ASP.NET website. Yeah, it can be difficult. But it even can go further. Maybe you can even be more biased in apps or libraries. For example, you really want to use that library, that NuGet package. Yeah, it's really something that happens more with people with autism than people without autism. And forums and communication. Can you imagine how difficult that it is if you are fanatic? The other bad thing about forums, is Foga. Oh, I wrote it wrong. Language and not being native English. Forum expect a lot of knowledge and do it yourself. How many people, if you ask really beginners questions, because we all been beginners, we all started as a beginner. Everyone is a beginner if they start. How many answers that I get? Google it, find it yourself. That's a stupid question. Sorry, I'm just a beginner. I'm just trying to learn something. No, I'm not a beginner anymore, but I still don't feel safe on Fora. Same for direct messages and communication and Twitter or on Facebook or LinkedIn. If there's direct messaging, everything around it is away. And you don't feel any border anymore. You don't see language. You even don't hear people. It's all direct. So sometimes you really can misinterpret what people are chatting to you. And maybe if you misinterpret what they are chatting to you, and maybe you are too impulsive to react, comment, yeah, that can cause strange situations. And you can also imagine, if we talk about communication, fora, user groups, and then I said a lot of people can have a different way of coding, maybe more rigid, maybe other patterns they like. Can you imagine that doing a code review or getting your code reviewed can be very, very difficult? And maybe you just need to know that you need to do a code review that can cause you a lot of stress as a person with autism. And maybe not only stress, but also real anxiety. And that's one of the reasons, or can be the reason, and for me, it's one of the reasons, it's very, very difficult to start contributing open source. There are a lot of open source projects that I like, that I love. But pushing a code change or a feature, yeah, so difficult. So afraid that I'm different, that I code another way, that people don't like the way that I name my variables, or how do I put my indentations on a if statement, by example? Yeah, and the intentions are there. There are a lot of repos that I follow. Yeah, and I really should contribute to that. Yeah. Guess what? Did I do I dare? And of course, people can also have special topics of interest. And this can be, for example, very fanatic to invest in something. Maybe you want your company or your organization to really invest in a technology that nobody cares about. Or maybe you really want to invest specific time and then the next cutting edge side project that nobody cares about. And what are you doing all day? Yeah, I love it. I'm passionate. Let's talk about sensory deficiencies in tech. Music and headphones. Some people with autism can be very more protective if they can listen to headphones. Or sometimes they are playing music in the headphones, or sometimes they call it noise cancellation headphones. I think a lot of speakers know that if you take a plane, I know people with autism or on the autism spectrum who always use noise cancellation headphones, not only on planes, even they don't fly. Some people, this can help for auditory distractions. If people are talking, they can be very distracted. Or just here at home, and if they listen to music, they work better. And then you read the internet, you read Twitter, you read LinkedIn, you like it, what you read, and all the people pro and against music at work. Should you listen music at work? No, you shouldn't. Yeah, you should. That's the best music, and all people are telling what you should do. But the problem is, a lot of people with autism can then be more unsure because all people say that, but everybody works different. And if really that playlist helps me, why should I care if some person saying you shouldn't do that? If you are at an office, for example, a landscape office or at an office, and the regulation is no music, but if you know if your coworkers talking and you are getting distracted, so you are working slower, so your delivery is less as expected. If you know if I have my headphones and I don't get distracted, I will be more productive. Why should your boss say it's not allowed? Something to think about. Back to the office. As I said, being distracted can be if people are talking, but also just people passing by. Maybe you get just very distracted if you see how many people are getting some coffee or yeah, and I include office space because let's be optimistic that we are going kind of back to normal or kind of back to or for the first time hybrid that there will be some days in the office and some days at home. And then you have people with autism, they want to cope that. So they do stemming. And stemming is making physical movements, for example. Uh, they call it this, for example, what I'm doing by my hands, for example. This can be a way of stemming. And some people who are stemming, and they look strange or they look stupid, but they are just a way to get the neurons flowing another way, and it's kind of maybe better for their head to concentrate. And sometimes if you force people with autism to do something, and you even don't allow them to do stemming, they can have a complete meltdown. And then maybe they can't do anything for the whole day anymore, or sometimes longer than a day. I really wanted to add something because it's really, again, taboo to say. Yeah, it's taboo, but a lot of people with autism have very heavy sensory reactions to smells, like perfume, some food, yeah, body smell. Yeah, it's taboo, but sometimes people with autism can really behave very different if some sensory smell sensory is overstimulated. It can be very hard. For example, there's one type of fish I really don't like, and I can't smell. I can imagine being at the workplace having lunch with my coworkers and they eating that type of fish. It's so hard to yeah. And a lot of people with autism has it from perfume too. I really want to talk a bit about anxiety and stress in tech. I really do it short. I think only 2 or 3 slides, 3 or 4 slides, because I'm working on a new talk, a new conference talk, or virtual event talks, and it's called Anxiety in Tech. Because, as I said, I think even I have my autism, and I have my, let's call it, difficulties with autism, or my other ways of being with my autism, but I really have way more difficulties and struggles with anxiety. And when I was starting doing that, adding that in my talk as extra diagnosis, and people are really interested in that, and I learned even more about my own anxiety. So I'm doing a new talk about it, a complete 1 hour talk, for example. But some things I really need to scratch for you today because it's linked to my autism also. And maybe you are really afraid to change from tool stack. Maybe you are afraid to do your Windows update because last time your computer crashed it when you did the update, but it was not your fault. It was not Microsoft's fault, Jude. It was your fault. You installed an alpha version or the insider alpha version on your production device. Even Microsoft was saying that you shouldn't do that. But it can also be being afraid for public transport, code changes, for example, going from PASS to IIS or from IIS to PASS or from PASS to FAST serverless can be a struggle. By the way, I did a conference talk moving from Azure IIS infrastructure as a service to platform as a service. My own story, and I did it the last time, I think it was at Azure Lowlands in 2020, and the Netherlands before the world was closing. Customers and separation anxiety. One of the anxieties, or the well-known anxieties, is separation anxiety. And this can be for customers. This can be separation anxiety from customer demands. And this can lead to asking too little money, for example, because, yeah, it's not that good. Or if I ask too much, customers won't come to me because, yeah, and then I lose the customers. But it can also be by indicating your borders and limits. For example, you don't dare to indicate your borders and limits if a customer contacts you, for example, ad hoc via Messenger. Yeah, it happens. But maybe you don't dare to say because you're afraid they are leaving me. They are leaving our non-profit. Deadlines. And you really see that I really put that in capital letters. It's just way of how I see it. If I see deadlines, I get stressed, I get anxious. Because what happens if I don't get the deadlines? And sometimes a lot of people, even me, are even working slower if you know there is a deadline due to the stress than if you don't know there is a deadline. Maybe you will be way more productive if you don't know there is a deadline. And maybe your boss or your coworkers don't say there's a deadline. What works for me? Let's start with being vulnerable. The anxiety and the separation anxiety, there's still a lot of work to do for myself. But it is what it is. Code style. Code style helps me. So working on my code style what helps? Getting inspired by community leaders, via my own interest, Microsoft Learn, watching conference talks, scrolling on, surfing on a Pluralsight, browsing on Pluralsight. Yeah, colors. Really simple. The need and the urge. And of course, the broad possibilities. I also have, I'm very special, an eye disease. Yeah, I have autism, I have anxiety, I have an eye disease, but I'm still very optimistic in life. I'm doing the tech life that I love to do. But sometimes I have an infection on my eyes due to my lenses don't have fluid enough. And then just if I have one eye, for example, I need to cover one eye here where the flight nap. But then if I set my screen, my computer environment on bright scenes, it still hurt, and then putting everything to dark theme temporarily, yeah, it can help my eyes. New technologies. Yeah, I say it's focusing on interest, conferences, Microsoft Learn, Windows and Mac, the need and the urge. Sometimes you have maybe you have an Apple device and a computer device, your Windows device, your favorite one, but he is broken, or she is broken, or it is broken. Yeah. But thank you to Microsoft Edge, all the web applications, and even right now, even Office 365 and the browser version, they are exactly the same. Visual Studio Code, exactly the same, whatever OS you use. So wrap up, I don't have a lot of time. I just want to say I told a bit about myself. I explained some theory about autism. I linked that, of course, to the tech. And then I saw what helped for me. I want to thank you. You have my details, and I have some time for questions. And as I promised, I provide to give you some answers.
Thank you so much, Dennie. It was a very, very great session. We have lots of people obviously asking questions, and I think everyone really enjoyed. I'm going to start with the chats first. So we have a question from Shay, who says, can you talk about your work in Microsoft? Especially, do you work a full-time job? How do you adapt to MS open space policy?
Yeah, as I explained, I don't work at Microsoft. I'm a Microsoft MVP, so I'm only, my day job is working in my non-profit Diagnose. And it's a voluntary job, so I don't have a paid job. I have a fee from the government. The Microsoft MVP thing is not a paid job. It's an award for what you are doing by speaking at conferences or blogging or being involved with the tech. So yeah, not.
Then we have Peter, who asks how to find an autism-friendly employer in the EU/UK.
It's difficult questions. What could I answer? There are some. I know in the UK you have one. I mail it to you if I get your credentials, because I need to search about it. I was at a conference. Also, I think it was Beyond Tech, also in London, and there was somebody from a company who was talking about how he employs people with autism. But if you mail me, then I have it as a reminder, and I really need to look up into my notes of that conference. In Belgium, you have kind of the same. I know that Microsoft has a very great diversity and inclusion policy, and Microsoft has in each country. And otherwise, it's difficult. There's a reason that I don't wear it as a paid job. But there are also great examples. I know, for example, in Belgium, you have some great companies, but I don't have a feeling I have the feeling there's no one-size-fits-all solution. You need to find a boss who really understands you. You need to find an employer who really understands you and who listen to you. That's it, and the co-workers. That's the most important thing.
We have another question from Slav. He says, how can I support my autistic kids to push them into IT/data field?
The first question is, I want to answer that question with another question. Are they interested to that? If they are interested to that, if this is their passion, there are a lot of resources, even online and free. Visual Studio Code is for free, even community edition, free versions to work with of the solutions. A lot of learnings, like on Microsoft Learn, on YouTube, a lot of learning. So if they are interested, there's a lot. But if your kid have another interest, why should you push them into IT? So the first question is, what is he or she's interest? Because you always should focus on the talent of your kid.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dennie. Anyone else has any questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself. I think we can take a couple of more.
Just to thank Dennie for a really great sharing of information and feelings and your way in the tech world. It was really eye-opening.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else has any questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself or raise a hand.
I'm also just looking also in the chat, because when I was doing my talk, I didn't follow the chat. So at this time, I'm just going over the chat. So if people see me reacting on something, I'm just looking.
We have a question from Camille. She says, what's the best way to diagnose autism?
My God. Yeah, there are medical doctors and medical experts to diagnose this. I can only give advices on how to handle or live with your autism, or live with a coworker or a daughter or coworker or kid or friend with autism. That's really kind of yeah. Those are some advices, but getting the diagnosis, yeah, there are other experts for that. Yeah, it's not that I don't want to say, because it's also changing. So, for example, when I got my diagnosis, I think it was still the DSM-2, and that is the diagnostical statistical manual for mental and psychiatry and mental diseases. But it's always changing very fast. For example, right now you have the DSM-5, and it's already completely different than the DSM-4. I'm not talking about the other ones. But if you have someone with autism with a diagnosis, or identify his or herself from autism, yeah, then you can have, and just listen. And sometimes it's just like, as I showed, the basic solution here is, it's always work. I put it back on the screen, my the basic solution, because it's so straightforward and not a lot of people doing this still. Sometimes it's way better than studying everything about autism and how you should do that. And this here, I just going back. Yeah, here the basic solution. But it's not for diagnosing, it's just for living or working or interacting with somebody you know with autism.
Oops, sorry, I was muted. Thank you. I was just going to say, I've just shared my screen. This session has been recorded and will be available to view on the Reactor YouTube channel in the next 48 hours. And I have put the link to the next accessibility episode in the chats. Our next accessibility episode is on sign language in text, so please feel free to join. The links are on the screen, so follow our meetup, follow our YouTube, our Twitter channels, and thank you so much, Dennie, once again for this absolutely amazing session, and thank you everybody who joined us from all over the world, and yeah, we hope to see you in the next session soon.
Thank you very much from my side too.
Thank you, everyone.
Ravneet?
Oh, actually, sorry, Yale has a question.
Yeah, I was never able to access the chat. I would suggest that at the beginning of the session, give some guidance on how to access chat. I couldn't see it anywhere in the interface.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So there there's like a little message button on the top of your Teams.
Oh.
If you click on that, you should be able to access the chat.
Okay. View. Yeah, no, there's something wrong with my interface.
Okay.
Maybe it's not working outside UE or anything like that, because I didn't have this option as well.
Oh, you should be able to see, it should be available to everybody. Well, we'll take your feedback, and obviously we will make sure that next time when we are running the session, we definitely talk about it. But yeah, we're over time now, so thank you everybody for your time and joining us in this session, and we hope to see you in the next one.